You're watching a More Beautiful World podcast with Susan Renee, a channel for those of you with open minds and courageous hearts who are looking for guidance on your trauma healing and personal transformation journeys. Here, I share with you the powers of intentional plant medicine use, along with other holistic therapies and spiritual guidance to guide you on your path forward. I'm so eager to share with you what I've learned in working with these sacred plant medicines on my own journey, including the knowing that what we do to heal ourselves, we do to heal the whole collective. Join me as I share my experiences, knowledge, and wisdom to guide your trauma healing so you can transform your life, and so that together we can create the more beautiful world we all know is possible. Well, hello and welcome to another episode of A More Beautiful World. And today's episode, I'm going to be sharing with you my experience with the oldest known psychedelic plant medicine known as Huachuma, which comes from the Huachuma cactus. And this is part 2 of the series. So in part 1, if you haven't checked out that episode, I shared all about Huachuma, including its benefits, its history, and its uses, and also why I specifically was called to this medicine. And in the next episode, part 3, I'll share the lessons and blessings that transpired during retreat and throughout my integration process. But today, in this part 2 of this 3-part series, I'm going to take you through my week-long experience with this sacred plant medicine and really talk about how the structure of the Huachuma retreat was set up. And I'm also going to do my best to capture the magic and the beauty that unfolded throughout the experience, because it really did feel like I was living a lifetime every single day with this medicine. So if you are ready to learn more about what an experience is like sitting with beautiful grandfather Huachuma, and what maybe your own experience could look like on the medicine journey with Huachuma, then this episode is for you. First off, I am dedicating this episode and this series of episodes to my dear brother Parker Sherry, who recently left his human body and transitioned to the other side. Were it not for Parker, this episode and the whole series of episodes and really my experience with Huachuma and grandfather medicine would not have been possible. So Parker was deeply dedicated to his shamanic path and his medicine journey, and it was his mission to raise the consciousness of humanity and to do his work in service toward that mission. So for you, my dear brother Parker, these episodes are for you. Para el bien de todos. For the good of all. Now, before we dive in too deep here today, I want to, as I do with all my plant medicine shares, I want to make a disclaimer that I do not assume any liability for the application of the information contained in this podcast. I am presenting this information to you all solely to further the quest for a fuller understanding of the human experience and how I believe we can use these medicines to make this a more beautiful world for us all. So with that, I am not recommending you go out there and use this medicine without deep thought, deep consideration, and really ensuring that it is in alignment for where you're at on your journey. And remember, what we do for one, we do for us all. So it's always my intention in sharing these experiences, with the medicine journeys that I have gone on and the medicine that I have received, that the downloads and the messages that have come through me will reach you in divine timing and really help to guide you on your journey, just as they have done for me on my journey. So with this episode, I want to start by saying, the Huachuma medicine creates an experience where you feel like you are living an entire lifetime in a single day. It brings in so much love, so much presence, so much gratitude. And while that is beautiful to experience and a beautiful theme you will notice throughout my share today of the retreat experience, it does make it very difficult to capture the fullness of my experience because so many moments throughout the week were truly ineffable. And because it does feel like a lifetime in a single day, it feels like there is a lot to capture. So I do remember my first day trying to journal about this experience, and it felt like it was going to take forever to capture the fullness of everything and all the magic that unfolded. So I had to let go of my traditional writing style, and I had to go to bullet points. Okay, so it is from these bullet points that I'll be sharing with you today, the highlights, and what I really felt like were the most noteworthy experiences throughout my week-long retreat with grandfather Huachuma. Because if I really was trying to capture every single moment of the entire week-long experience, we would have several episodes just on my Huachuma experience. So it took me a little while to organize this podcast for you all, but I hope I did my work and you can follow along and really enjoy the journey and the experience. With that, I am trusting you already listened to part 1 of this series because in part 1, I not only shared a lot about the Huachuma medicine and its uses and its benefits and its history, I also shared a lot about what was going on in my life and why I decided to say yes to this medicine. I think it's always important as we are choosing, to journey with a plant medicine and to learn from these plants that we are in alignment. And that we have good intentions and purpose going into ceremony with these plant medicines. So if you haven't already, make sure you check out the previous episode so you can learn more about Huachuma, get a little more context around what was happening in my life, why I said yes to this medicine, because that will help you understand and more fully, experience with me this week-long retreat in this episode. So with that, I shared with you kind of what was going on in life and what brought me to the medicine. And then it came for retreat time. So today I'm going to take you through this week-long retreat and from arrival day all the way through departure day. And with that, it was a lot that was happening. So I'm going to kind of be sharing like snippets and stories. And of course, if you ever want to know more about any of it, you just reach out to me. We can talk more about the journey. But again, I've brought forward the highlights I feel that are going to be most helpful for you as you learn about Huachuma, what an experience could be like, and what you may experience from this medicine. So with this week-long retreat, arrival day was on a Sunday and departure day was on a Saturday. We were actually sitting with the medicine on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So we kind of had like a day break in between each use and ceremony with the medicine. So to kick off on arrival day on Sunday, I was arriving into a group of 13 other participants besides myself. And one of the things that was happening in my life at the time, I actually had an injured back as I was going into ceremony. So I was really nervous about that because there is a lot of sitting in ceremony. We were going to be out on this big retreat space at a ranch. So I knew we'd be doing some outdoor stuff. But my back was really messed up. It was really slowing me down. And so I arrived at retreat that Sunday. I arrived a little bit late because I got lost and didn't think about traffic. But I also came in a bit uncomfortable because of my back. So as I get there and drop in, they were just getting into the kickoff orientation. So I introduced myself, got to meet everybody, and then they started off really talking to us about what the structure was of the retreat week. So with a traditional Huachuma experience from the Chavin culture that my shaman studied under, the traditional structure is you have this kind of 3-day ceremony kind of going every other day with the medicine. And day 1 is all about unification. And day 2 with the medicine is about transformation. And then day 3 with the medicine is about ascension. So our Monday would be our unification day, our Wednesday would be transformation day, and our Friday would be ascension day. And as they were sharing this in ceremony, one of the things one of the shamans shared is that everything they do during the retreat week, everything that they offer is an opportunity for healing. And that really resonated with me because at the time I was in need of some deep healing. And so every offering, every hape, every additional offering in addition to the to drinking the Huachuma brew, it was all an opportunity for healing. And that really helped me to kind of get in the mindset and to frame my mind to just say yes to everything throughout the whole week, because that was my intention, was to get there and go through some deep healing and get some clarity throughout this retreat. So with that, that was kind of the setup for the week. We learned that in our kickoff orientation. And we also learned, like with many of the plant medicine retreats, that we would be fasting on our medicine days until like late afternoon, early evening, when we would get a small snack before we kind of finished the day, and then would always have dinner, way late at night, kind of early in the morning. So as we all kick off, we get this orientation, we learn what the structure of the week is going to be. Then we all head out together to do kind of a bonding experience and a bit of an experience to set the foundation for the retreat. And we all went out into this area of the property called the Sacred Grove. So we kind of did this little hike back out through nature to this area called the Sacred Grove. And one of the shamans was going to lead us through hape ceremony. Now, hape is a tobacco snuff that is inhaled through the nose, and it's also mixed with different plants. So there are a lot of different types of hape. Maybe I'll do a whole episode on hape and hape ceremonies, but it really is a beautiful synergistic medicine for a lot of these psychedelics. It's used primarily, in ayahuasca retreats. It's used a lot in Huachuma retreats. And so it was a beautiful kickoff to our retreat week to go on arrival day, out into the Sacred Grove to do hape together. And it was really to help us get into alignment. What I've always experienced with hape is that it really helps to bring you back to center, helps you to get into alignment, and really helps you to feel a lot of peace, and like opening, heart opening as well. So it also can purge. It can be a little purgative. And so if there is some stuck energies, it can also help you move through those as well to get back to that place. So we all get to go out into this beautiful Sacred Grove, and we get to do hape together. Now, this was a powerful start for me to kick off this retreat, because even though I had plenty of opportunities to do hape before, both with friends and in retreat settings, I had never done it. So it was my first time out in the Sacred Grove experiencing hape with all my new brothers and sisters in my medicine family. And I really had a powerful and beautiful first experience. And I think for so long, I've had such a toxic relationship with tobacco, and being a smoker. And so knowing that hape was, a tobacco product, I always was like shunning it. And so I really felt like it was a big foundation and a big belief system shift for me, changing my relationship. So powerful way to kick off ceremony. But as we go through that, you could just feel this magic in the Sacred Grove, which again, we're just on this like 110 acre ranch out in Texas. And it was really, really beautiful out there. The nature was just spectacular. There was lots of just peace and tranquility and birds and frogs, and you could just hear all the nature. And so getting to connect with everyone, and be out in nature all together and going through this ceremony together was a gorgeous way to have our kickoff. So after that, we kind of all go back, we get settled. We needed to get some sleep because the next day was day one of taking the Huachuma medicine. And day one was all about unification day. So, as I'd mentioned, I was having some serious trouble with my back, and I was really worried about, being in the medicine. I was really worried about, being out in nature for the day and having to stand at the mesa, which is the altar for ceremony. So luckily, I was blessed with one of the guys that worked at the retreat center and on the ranch. He was a body worker and very talented in the world of massage therapy and body work and energy work. So to start day one, to start Unification Day, I got a 90-minute world-class massage from him. And that was such a freaking blessing because it unlocked so much in my low back and my hips and my legs and gave me some mobility to not only get through that day, but to get through the week. So great way to kick off the day. But with every day, with every ceremony day, we always, again, we were fasting in the morning. So we're fasting, we're kind of like getting ready, packing our little day bags, getting, ready for ceremony and drinking the Huachuma medicine. But we always would start with hape as well. So in kind of the main living area in the main room, they would perform our hape ceremonies. And it was always beautiful to go and to sit and to hold space for others, receiving the medicine, to get delivered the medicine myself. So on Monday, I got my hape going to get centered and ready for the day because, again, I was taking every opportunity possible for healing. But it was after everyone kind of got to, receive the hape. It was early afternoon. We would head over to the mesa. And the mesa is the altar. So we would take medicine around the mesa to kick off the day. And then to end the day, we would do additional ceremonial work around the mesa at night, which I will share more about. But the mesa is, again, this grand altar. It is set up kind of in like the shape of a cross a little bit. It's like these big tables set up in the shape of a cross. And there are all sorts of crystals and spiritual objects and just these really high frequency powered beings to create this like amazing energy on this altar. So we always drank the medicine around the altar, and we always finished a ceremony around the altar at night as well with some other things. So when we headed in, we all headed in together to go to the mesa, and women would sit on one side of the mesa, men would sit on the other. And again, we had 7 women on one side, 7 men on the other. And you're kind of called up one by one to this point on the mesa called the axis mundi, which is kind of the most powerful point on the altar. And as you're called up there, your energy is cleared. You're blessed with things like sage and palo santo and sweetgrass and whatever the shamans might be called to. And then your cup of Huachuma is blessed as well. And then you are to drink the medicine. So one by one, we go up, we do our drinks. And as my shamans taught me, especially my dear brother Parker, you always kind of say a little prayer before you drink the medicine. And the prayer that they offer in the Chavin culture is para el bien de todos, which means for the good of all. So before I would drink every cup, it would be para el bien de todos. Drink the medicine down. And then after you drink the medicine, you get to grab some mapacho, which is sacred tobacco, have a little bit of limonada, which is lemonade, and then you go back to your seat until everyone is finished. So it was always beautiful to kind of watch everyone take the medicine and to just be in that experience together. But from there, after we would all finish, we would then, kind of close down the altar, say a prayer, and then we would head out into the property. So on day one, on unification day, we went out into the property, and there were several different ponds and like sources of water on the property. And we went to this one kind of like farthest pond from like the main house. So it was a little bit of a hike out there. And I remember like as I'm hiking, the medicine was like kind of already starting to kick in. I'm like feeling kind of happy and giggly and joyful. But when we got to the water, I was a bit hesitant to go in. And I was like, ooh, this is like a big pond. I don't know if I really want to swim in there. I don't know what is in there. But ultimately, I just hit this point of like, you know what? Fuck it. This looks like fun. I want to have fun, and I want to be with these amazing people. So I just jumped right in, and it felt so good to be in the water. I mean, the whole retreat week, we had perfect weather to be outdoors, to be doing things like swimming. It was probably around like 80 and sunny every day with a little bit of humidity. So it was absolutely gorgeous. But I remember it felt so amazing to just be in the water and just feel so held by Pachamama, by our Earth Mother, and to really be just with everyone and to be laughing and to feel so deeply connected to everyone. There was one guy there who was a total jokester, and he just kept telling all these jokes, and we were just laughing and swimming and playing, and it was just very, very joyful experience. And so, we're out on the property, and everything's like just going super good. One of my dear sisters who was there, that I had connected pretty deeply with right out of the gate, she was going through some heavier emotions, during her experience. And I kind of like did a little cutaway from all the fun to just hold some space for her. And I remember she reflected back to me just how much she appreciated it and how she thought I was so good at holding space. And she was like, you're really gifted, and like, this is your medicine, and you need to, be doing this for other people. And it was really an honor to have that reflected back to me, during the retreat experience. And so another crazy thing when her and I were together is that as we were kind of walking away from the crowd, we saw this huge, massive snake going like out from the pond, like into the forest. And I was like, ooh, I might not get back in the water. I did go back in the water, but it was interesting to see the snake because the snake is the animal totem for Unification Day. So really cool to see our big snake on Unification Day out in nature. But after my sister and I got back and we were, really starting to feel the medicine, the shamans brought in an ecstatic dancing experience. So they had this beautiful playlist. We're out in nature, we're all in our swimsuits and barefoot, and these amazing jams come on that you just want to do some dancing. And if you've never done ecstatic dancing before, I highly recommend it because ecstatic dancing is all about just letting it all out, right? Just letting it all hang out and moving with the music as it calls to you. And it felt so great to be out in nature, dancing in this music. Even though my back was a little sore, like I do remember I was moving pretty gingerly to the music because I didn't want to hurt my back because it was feeling better from my morning massage. But it really was a gorgeous day. And, after that, they brought out some fruit for us to break our fast and had some like nuts and seeds. And so we're all like having this picnic out by this pond on this beautiful property. And I remember like one of my dear brothers was just kind of like leaning into me and I'm like playing with his hair because that's one of the things in the Huachuma medicine. You just love everyone so much and you just want to hug everyone and just hold everyone. And so there's a lot of hand holding and cuddles and snuggling and just like being love. It really is about just this deep, deep feeling of being so loving. I shared in my previous podcast, which feels appropriate to share again right now. It is said that Huachuma is everything MDMA wishes it was, which MDMA is also known as ecstasy. And, if you've ever experienced MDMA, and you know how like heart opening it is, how good it feels to be touched, how good it feels to touch others, right? There is an essence of that in the Huachuma experience. So it was really great again to just kind of like be with everyone and like, laying with people and just laughing and having fun and being in joy and being in love. It was really, really beautiful. So we had a great day out in nature on day one, Unification Day. And then after we kind of go back in, we all kind of like get changed, get ready for ceremony. Again, kind of traditionally in ceremony, you wear white or some sort of ceremonial clothing. So we all get ready to go back out to the mesa, because that's where we would close ceremony every night. And as we're all getting ready, they also opened up the hape for the healing, for the grounding before we went back around the mesa. So went through another round of beautiful hape medicine. And then together, all as one, we walk out to the mesa at night. And again, remember the mesa is this big altar that's shaped like a cross, and it really has some powerful energy. I mean, they had some really special, crystals and little spiritual talismans and just this gorgeous pieces of art. I mean, there was so many beautiful things on that altar on the mesa, and it really powered up and charged up the room that we were in ceremony in. So this night, what we were doing in ceremony around the mesa was we were doing some eye gazing. And this was a really unique experience because they took like all 14 of us to go around the mesa. So we're all kind of like able to look at each other. And they played this really powerful, very moving, very emotional set of music, probably for at least 2 hours, maybe 2.5, 3. Time gets pretty wonky in the medicine. But the eye gazing was all about really connecting and unifying us, right? This essence and this spirit of unification, where, we are to unify our hearts and see how deeply we all are connected. And so when you are standing across from someone that you just met, 24 hours ago, to open your heart and to gaze into their eyes and to really see yourself in them, it's a feeling that is vulnerable and real and difficult, but powerful, and ultimately, so full of love. Like if you can kind of get your ego out of the way and allow your heart to open, there is this beautiful unification that happens, and this experience around this mesa was just so powerful. Because again, there's like gorgeous music playing and sometimes the songs made you want to cry, it's your eye gazing with someone and you're crying. Sometimes, you were smiling and laughing. They were more playful songs and depending on who you were eye gazing with, changed your experience, because some people maybe represented your father or, your brother or your sister, or a loved one who had passed. And, for me, it was really intense to feel, this deep connection, right? This deep love with so many people that I had just met. Right. And I will say it did feel a bit difficult as well to truly like stare and gaze into someone's eyes, because I believe the eyes are really the window to the soul. So you're just like kind of staring right deep into someone's soul. And I think in our society, we don't always do that, right? We don't always even make eye contact even for a second. So when you are there deeply gazing, it can feel difficult because it's very unnatural to us. So it really was beautiful how heart opening and unifying it was when I surrendered to it. Yes, that was a powerful and amazing experience, and really so grateful that was how the retreat week started, because it really unified us. It made this group of 14, pretty much strangers, feel unified, feel like an ohana, feel like a family. And we were, we all felt that. And so after the mesa closed that night, went back to the main house, got a really good meal. Always the best part of closing a medicine day is the food, and then to bed. So that was day one. That was unification day. Now, next day was integration day. Next day was a Tuesday, and that was not a medicine day. It was kind of like a free day. We did have a sharing circle that day. And, I remember sharing in that circle. I was just, my first day experience was really joyful. I just wanted to love on everybody. My heart was really open. It was a really positive experience. Not everyone had the same experience as I did. And I was hoping everyone would tap into that joy, to that fun, to that play, to that love that I had connected into. But besides our sharing circle that day, it was pretty much a free day. And so I, being the nature lover that I am, really felt called to get outside and to get some sunshine on my skin. So they had a beautiful pool on the property. And I first was like, I'm just going to go up by the pool, in my bathing suit, soak up some sun, listen to some good tunes, maybe connect with some people. But when I got out there, I wasn't feeling that vibe. It felt really good to be outside, but like not by the pool. So I decided to just kind of pack up my little bag and head out into the property. And, with that, again, I had 110 acres to play with, and there's forest, there's this beautiful sacred grove, there was a bunch of different ponds and so much magic out there. So I found myself getting out by one of the ponds that was kind of closest to the main house, and I just felt this call to dance. And here I am by myself, like out on this property with my headphones in. Got like my jam, playlist going, and I just danced. And I've got to tell you, based on everything that I had been going through in the prior few months, with all the trauma, all the negativity, all the depression, the anxiety that I had been feeling in life, this moment of dancing by this pond, it was probably the first time I had felt joyful and alive in probably 6 months, like to really embody it and like really feel it fully. And I just remember, you could not stop me from dancing. Didn't care if anybody walked by, didn't care what animals were around. Like it did not matter. I just went out and danced. I danced my little heart away out there. And it felt so amazing. And I remember after that, I had to go back and capture in my journal, like just how good it felt to feel that aliveness and that vitality again. And even though I felt that aliveness, what was interesting is kind of a contrast on that day was I did feel myself like feeling a little distant from people that evening. And it was a struggle. It was different from like the day prior, where I felt so open and so connected to everyone. I was just having a hard time kind of opening up and connecting. And luckily, one of my dear brothers who was there, he offered to hold some space for me and help me move through that. And it felt so good. He sat with me and just listened to me and listened to a lot of the trauma that I had been moving through and coming from, and kind of where things were at in my life. And it just felt so good for him to hear me and to hold space for me. And after that, he just held me. Like I started to cry, and he hugged me, and he just held me as I just cried. And it felt so good to have like the divine masculine just hold up my divine feminine and this emotion and energy that was moving through me. And it was very clearing. It was very cathartic. And I feel it was something I really needed to get ready for the next day, which was Transformation Day. So Wednesday, Transformation Day, was all about, again, taking this next level of the medicine journey into our transformation to some deeper levels of healing. So it was the same setup as before. We were fasting throughout the morning. We did some morning hot bay to get ready for ceremony. And then we transitioned over to the mesa, to that altar, in the early afternoon. So, a reminder from for part one of the series, this medicine can take 12 to 14 hours to really like move through you in a full experience. So, even though we were taking the medicine in early afternoon, it was with us and we were kind of riding it in ceremony, until like the morning hours, sometimes 1, 2, 3 a.m. Um, so as we're kind of like getting ready, to go to ceremony, I was definitely feeling less anxiety and more connected to everyone, which was a really good way to go into the day. And we go into the mesa and again, kind of go one by one around. Everyone drinks their medicine. And after we kind of finished our drinking of the medicine ceremony, we get to go down to one of the ponds and play outside. And it was kind of a free day or a free couple of hours. And we were all just to go out and play. And there were boats and there was like a couple kayaks and a couple of rowboats and me and two of my friends decided to get into this little like rowboat. Now there weren't a lot of paddles and one of them was even broken. But it was funny because I was in the boat with a guy and a girl, two of my friends, my medicine family, and it was super windy that day. So it was like really hard to paddle around. But they each took the paddles, and I just kind of got to sit back and receive the journey, and that kind of set a little tone for something that happened later in the day, which I'll circle back to. But we just kind of played around and, did some swimming and, we laughed about like some Disney movies and we're talking about some of our favorite Disney movies. And it was just really beautiful, again, to be with everyone and to connect and to feel, feel this like unification with everyone, to feel our interconnectedness and to be doing this work together. And what was really healing for me on this day, and maybe even, I would say transforming, was as we were out playing by the pond, I was kind of sitting and we had just like gotten our little afternoon snack. And one of my dear sisters, Victoria, came up to me, and her and I had kind of this like natural, repulsion toward each other right out of the gate. Like you could tell we were avoiding each other a little bit. And so, and I could tell for sure she was like avoiding me a little bit more, but, that day, on Transformation Day, she came up to me and she was very honest with me. And I just loved how honest she was. And she shared with me that, she thought initially, right as she met me, I was too positive. She was kind of disgusted by my positivity, thought I was too much, too shiny, too loving, too joyful. And she was like, I just, wanted to get over that because I know that's not true. And I know that was just a judgment. And so we opened up and started like sharing our stories. And, I really talked to her in that moment, in the medicine, just about how much trauma I had gone through and how much darkness I had experienced in my life and how much work I have had to do in order to feel this light and to feel, this level of joy in my life. And with that, she kind of got it. And there was this moment where we really connected into how important it is to not judge, right? And to not judge others because we don't know what their journey is. And to always invite the opportunity to connect more deeply and to connect more intimately, to truly learn others' stories, right? And to deepen our connection because we are all connected. And the funniest thing about Victoria and how we were kind of naturally like repulsed with each other at first a little bit, and then we came back into connection, to this day, which I'm about 6 months out of my Huachuma experience at the time of this recording, Victoria and I are probably the most connected from anyone in my Huachuma experience. So, to have again this beautiful, intimate connection that day on our transformation day was such a gift. And she's such a dear sister, and I just love her so much. And I'm so grateful for her. And I'm glad that she spoke up that day and we were able to open our hearts and connect to each other. So the other big noteworthy experience, I think, on Transformation Day is what happened around the mesa that night. So after our time outside, we go in, we, get ready for ceremony that night. We do some hape. We all go over to mesa together. And we never knew what we were getting into until we were at the mesa. So we're at the mesa. It's Wednesday night. We're all very deep in the medicine. And we learn it is Sananga night. And we're like, oh, and actually, I just misspoke. It's Sangada. So there's another medicine called Sananga, which are some medicinal eye drops. And my Spanish always gets the best of me. Sangada is a mixture, though, of a medicine that is used sometimes with Huachuma. And it is a mixture of agua de Florida, which is kind of a protection water, hape, which again is the tobacco snuff, and Huachuma. So it is a liquid mixture, again, of agua de Florida, hape, and Huachuma, which is mixed together in this little watery paste that you actually snort up your nose out of a seashell. That is traditionally how you take Sangada. And it is otherworldly, okay? Did not expect that to be offered up as part of the journey. But the Sangada, think of it as like a railroad spike being shot up into your nose, because that's what it felt like. But watching the first woman who took it, she took it like a champion, like it was nothing. And so I was like, okay, that doesn't look bad. That I can handle that. And then next up, two men did it back to back. And these two guys just fell apart doing this Sangada. They're choking, they're coughing, they're vomiting, they're spitting. They're like falling to the ground doing all of this. And I was like, oh my God, this is going to be really, really intense. I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can snort this liquid mixture up my nose. But I remembered that everything they present and offer to us is an opportunity for healing. And it was Transformation Day. And I'm all about the transformation vibes. So of course I had to go for it. So I go up for my Sangada, and the Sangada, again, trying to snort liquid up your nose out of a seashell, it's kind of a whole different vibe. It was my first time. Had never done anything like that before. So it was a little messy, but I got it up my nose, felt the railroad spike, and holy cow, there was some deep purging that happened for me with this medicine. So once the railroad spike vibe kind of passed, there was just a lot, you could just really feel the medicine moving deeply through you. And after we would do our snort of the Sangada up our nose, we would go to different points on and around the mesa. And I went to this one point on the mesa. It was one of the access points. It was the masculine access point. And I remember just all of a sudden feeling just terrible, and a lot of grief, a lot of pain, just a lot of things coming up from my lower chakras into my heart. And I start kind of purging, and I'm doing this little vomiting, spitting thing. And I could feel like I was purging for other people, but all of a sudden I had this really big purge for myself. And so I'm purging, and it was so much that I just fell to the ground. And I just felt my heart just in so much pain. And I just started crying and crying. And it was quite a loud cry. And as I'm on the ground, my brother Parker comes to my aid, and some of the other people come, and they're putting their hands on me to give me love and to give me healing as I'm purging and having this big emotional moment. And it was so fascinating because all I wanted to do was to just shirk everybody off of me, just like, get off of me. I'm fine. I'm okay. And I remember Parker said to me, just open to receive. And in that moment, I felt my heart just crack wide open, and I allowed everyone's love in. And it was hard because I realized I hadn't done that in a very long time. And to have everyone there giving me love as I'm crying, as I'm purging, as I am just like a hot mess, was a huge, huge tipping point for me. Really in my life, in this medicine journey, but probably a moment I will always remember. And I'm so glad I didn't, just push everybody off of me and say I was fine, that I opened to receive and I opened to their love and to their healing. Because that, as you learn in the next episode, was a big part of the lesson that came from this journey for me. But ultimately, as I was in this experience, I really felt like I was purging, out a lot of grief, a lot of pain. And I knew that on the other side of that, I was creating space. I was getting clarity, and I was going to be lighter. But in that moment, the receiving of the love and the healing and the support from others was everything. So, I remember after we closed Mesa that night and we're all giving each other hugs, everyone was like, wow, like you were really moving through some stuff tonight. You were moving some stuff for others. And Parker was just like, you did great work. He's like, you did great work for us all, para el bien de todos. And that was a beautiful reflection I'll be forever grateful for. And that was a night after you go through an experience of snorting, the sangada up your nose with other people. You're real tight at this point because that was all sorts of craziness that unfolded that night. But we were all very deeply bonded after that experience. And so that was a beautiful night because we stayed up late. And I just remember we're all just kind of like snuggling and laughing and telling jokes, until like 4 a.m. After we had eaten our late dinner. And it just felt so great to be with my ohana, my medicine family. So for the purpose of this podcast, which is already going to be a long one because this is a big experience, integration day was Thursday. And I'll be honest, I did not take a lot of great notes for my integration day on Thursday. And I don't have a lot to share on my integration day on Thursday. What I do remember is that they brought in a beautiful woman who offered us a cacao ceremony on this day with some sound healing. She had a sound bowl with her. And I remember feeling, so deeply connected to everyone. I remember feeling just so deep in love with myself, with others, and having a lot of presence and gratitude in my heart during that cacao ceremony. It was a beautiful pairing, with the Huachuma, with the hape, and it was just a gorgeous experience. It was a really synergistic experience. And I remember that was a big highlight from the ceremony week. But besides that, I honestly don't remember what happened on integration day. I do know at this point, I was so connected with everyone and really just having great conversations and great experiences. I'm sure I spent a lot of time outside because that was where there was a lot of magic happening. So on Ascension Day, that takes us to Friday, Ascension Day. Ascension Day was a gorgeous day. So this was our third day taking the medicine, and a beautiful day it was. Again, same setup as other days, fasting in the morning, doing the morning hape, and heading into ceremony room and the mesa early afternoon and drinking the medicine. So after our drinking of the medicine on this day, it was a total free day. And I was like a little almost perturbed by that because I was like, no, give me structure. Like I want to have something to do. Um, but it ended up being really beautiful once I kind of surrendered to the fact that we could do whatever we wanted. Um, I ended up feeling really called to go out by the water where I was doing the dancing, on my first integration day. And the woman who ended up right with me there was my dear sister who did the cacao ceremony the day before. She had some beautiful, peaceful, tranquil energy, which I really enjoyed. And as her and I are just kind of like laying out in the sun by the water, just, being in peace and at one with nature, one of the shamans, Zachary, had come to join us. And I was so grateful for that because I was really called to be in Zachary's energy throughout the whole retreat experience. He holds a very peaceful, grounding, heart opening energy. And so it was great to be in his energy space. And we had another dear brother come in as well. And so we kind of just had like the four of us there for a while. And we were just in some deep, serious, like rest and relaxation vibes, which felt so good to just be in nature, to be feeling so restful. And then Zachary brought out some of his crystals and we kind of started playing with some of the Andara crystals that he had. We did a swim in the water. And what was really beautiful about this ascension day and this free day is what kind of started as us four, we kind of became this like gravitational magnetic point for everyone to start kind of coming back together and collecting. And so one by one, we were kind of in a center point on the property. So kind of one by one, all of our other brothers and sisters started to kind of gravitate back toward us. And I remember Zachary brought out some hape. And when we did the hape out by the pond that day, I just remember like feeling into the Christ consciousness and feeling that golden light of Christ just kind of come in and surround us. And it was just so present on that day. I will say Ascension Day, I was the deepest in the medicine, which is kind of how it works because the medicine builds in you. So I was having a lot more like crown chakra spiritual experiences on Ascension Day. I had this Christ consciousness come in and this light surrounding me on Ascension Day. And I remember I was playing with some of Zachary's Andara crystals and just feeling their energy and just feeling how magical the stones were. And then one of my favorite moments of the entire experience on Ascension Day, as we're all kind of there gathered in this little spot, I was really, again, so deep in the medicine and was really feeling so present and like I was living, this lifetime in a day. And I remember Parker came out of the sacred grove, which was kind of like across the pond, and he comes over to us all and he says to everyone, there is some serious magic happening over in the sacred grove right now. And I don't know who all was paying attention to him or not, but I heard him. And I was thinking to myself, I love magic. And if there's magic happening over in the sacred grove, I want to experience whatever that magic is. And so I didn't go with him. Like he kind of left and went back, and I was probably like 100 yards behind him. And I go and walk over into the sacred grove, and I sat down with a mapacho and just dropped right in. And hot damn, was he right. There was some magic happening back there. And I don't know what it was, but there were some light beams, there was an energy, there was just some serious presence of Mother Nature and Pachamama happening back there. And I wasn't sitting near Parker. Again, we were maybe like 30, 40 yards from each other, kind of down the way. And all of a sudden, as we're both there, just kind of blissed out, like sitting in and taking in this gorgeous energy back in this grove, Parker and I shared this most beautiful experience. And it's something I will always remember about my dear brother. There was this butterfly that started dancing between us. The butterfly would kind of fly toward me, and then it would fly back toward Parker. Then it'd kind of go up a little bit and come back toward me, and then go up a little bit and go back toward Parker. And he and I both just sat there and watched this same butterfly for, again, what felt like an eternity, felt like an entire lifetime. And I don't know. I don't know how long it really was. But that moment with Parker was probably one of the best experiences of the whole ceremony. And I'll tell you more about that in part 3 because that comes into my integration process. But afterwards, and that experience happening of watching this gorgeous dance of the butterfly for, again, what felt like an eternity with Parker, Parker and I had a really beautiful chat that will always stick with me as well. And just shared, how beautiful, life is, and how this experience really teaches you what it's all about. It's just about finding the joy in living, each day. And so there was an overall feeling that day of timelessness, again, being so present in the now. And it really was just how gorgeous, how you felt like you were experiencing, this lifetime in a day. So that night, we go back to the mesa, and it's kind of last noteworthy experience from the ceremony. We did some breath work that night in the medicine. And so instead of standing up around the mesa that night, they had us laying down on like yoga mats and pillows around the mesa, around the altar. And we got into some breath work. So they had this whole like guided breath work journey and music going on. And if you've ever done breath work, breath work alone, you can have some really powerful, almost psychedelic type experiences. So pairing the breath work with the Huachuma was like otherworldly. Talk about ascension. So as I'm like getting into the breath work, I just started feeling these big releases, big energetic releases. And we were encouraged to scream or to cry or, to yell or like just let out whatever we needed. And I felt some really big releases coming out of my liver, a lot of anger coming out, I could tell, and a lot of stuff out of my gut as well. Like I was having all these interesting sensations and releases, from my gut and also from my throat chakra. And as I was like really getting into the breath work, I felt so much purging happening. And my purging in this instance was really coming through like my body shaking. So I was getting a lot of like deep body shakes, and I could tell I was releasing, a lot of self-inflicted pain that I had had over time. And it really connected me back to my previous ayahuasca ceremony and releasing a lot of self-shame and unworthiness. And it really was kind of this like full circle of my medicine journeys, and it was super powerful. And I just remember having these releases, and then kind of just like going into this like blissed out meditative state. It was almost kind of like lucid dreaming that I fell into. It was really fascinating. And as we were doing it, the shamans and some of our guardians were walking around and clearing our energy with sage and sweetgrass and palo santo and mapacho, and a really powerful way to end the ceremony work with Grandfather Huachuma. So again, that is snippets of the retreat. I feel like I could talk I've already almost made this technically 2 episodes with the length. I could tell you so much more about the experience. And if you do want to hear more about it, grab a clarity call with me and we can talk more about it or find some time. But, ultimately going through this journey with this amazing group of people through unification, through transformation, through ascension was magical. Being able to experience these lifetimes in a day it's just ineffable. I know this podcast episode will not do it justice to what the experience was truly like, but I do hope it gives you at least a little glimpse into what the retreat experience was like and what some of my experiences were and what yours maybe could be like as well. Because after that, next day, again, it was a transition day. It was a day to kind of integrate and get on our journeys. And there was some beauty and magic that happened that day too. And it really came down to how deeply, I felt connected to everyone. And it goes back into all of my plant medicine journeys and recognizing, the way that we need to be living is in this story of interbeing. It's not in the story of separation. We are all unified. We are all connected. We are all, in this story of interbeing, interconnection with each other. And if I get nothing else from retreats, it's always a reminder that exists and how connected we all are and how what we do for one, we do for us all. Because tribe, right? Let's remember this podcast and everything I share, it really is all about making the world a more beautiful place. And that begins with you, begins with me, begins with us, because as we better ourselves and move through our healing and transformation journey, we do work to beautify our world. So I hope you found this episode helpful. I hope you found it enjoyable. Thank you for listening to the extra long episode and for sticking with me. Remember, next episode is going to be part 3 of this series where I'm going to share all the lessons, all the blessings that came through an integration of this magical experience with grandfather Huachuma. So stay tuned for that one or go check it out next. So with that, as always, remember, tribe, if you need support on your journey, as you're going through healing the anxiety, healing the trauma, make sure, you always feel free to grab a clarity call with me, whether you want to talk about plant medicine journeys and bringing in plant medicine to your journey, whatever it is, I'd be honored to guide you, through your own healing and transformation, and maybe through your own unification, transformation, and your ascension. But that is all for today, tribe. Until next time, much love to you all. Hey tribe, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button below and then click subscribe so you catch future episodes. And remember, I've got lots of free resources for you to learn about the powers of intentional plant medicine use in order to support your trauma healing and personal transformation journey. So make sure you check them out in the description below and help in making this a more beautiful world for us all. Thanks again for tuning in, tribe. And until next time, much love to you all.